what is the best and worst thing about when you were a child? Specifically, as far as how different things are today. So obviously, things are way different today, being a child.
Very different.
So what were the best and worst things for you as a child?
Well, I never went really hungry. I always had food. Mother and Daddy lived on a farm, and they had gardens. In fact, Daddy continued to garden until he was up in his late 80s. He loved gardening. One of the experiences that I remember as a child was when Mother and Daddy moved to Shakota. Daddy was farming, and he didn't own any land, so I guess you would call him a tenant farmer or something like that. And he raised cotton crop there this year at Shakota. Velda was a baby. I remember Mother saying she didn't have a baby bed for her, so she pulled a drawer out of the chest of drawers and put a pillow in it and covered it up and made a little bed for her. If Velda was not a year old, she was just a baby. She's 2 years younger than I was. So I was close to 3, I imagine, but about 2 years old. And I can actually remember some things that happened when I was 2 years old. I could not believe that I really remembered it. I thought maybe I had heard someone talking about it. But I asked my mother years later, and I said, Mother, did this really happen? Do I really remember this? And she said, yes, you do. We had a storm cellar, and it filled with water, and we had some baby ducks that drowned. Well, ducks don't drown usually. You know, they're pretty good at swimming from the day they hatch and so on. And I asked her about, she said yes. They couldn't, I guess they just were exhausted or something, because they had no place they could go to get out of the water. And I can remember seeing those little baby ducks floating in that water. But the really sad thing was, there was a tornado had come through the neighborhood, and a neighbor's house had been blown away, and their little baby was killed. It was blown out into a field and killed. And they brought the baby to our house because it was still standing, put it on 2 chairs, put 2 chairs together, and I don't remember seeing the baby, but I remember seeing the white sheet over the baby. And I asked Mother if there was ever a baby in our house that was dead, that was covered with sheets. And she said yes, it was the baby that was blown away in the tornado. And I'm just curious about that year, if there's any information about the tornado or what happened at that time at Shakota. We could figure it out by subtracting 2 or 3 possibly from my age, but I've never learned what happened there except what Mother told me. I also remember that Daddy had a cotton crop, and I wanted to pick cotton too. Isn't that funny? When you're a child, you want to do what your parents do. Daddy had a great big long cotton sack, and he was picking cotton. So Mother took a pillowcase and fixed me a cotton sack. Now, how much cotton I picked, I don't remember, but probably not enough to fill the pillowcase. And that's also while we were at, isn't it strange? I can remember so much when I was that age. But when Daddy sold his crop, he went to town. He had a truck apparently, because I remember riding in a truck, and he went to town and he bought me a tricycle and a teddy bear. And I can remember standing up in the seat of the truck, before seat belts, of course, looking out the back window, watching that tricycle to be sure it didn't roll out of the truck. And I had the bear in the truck with me. And I had that teddy bear for a long time. I wish I still had it. I don't think it was a stuffed bear with a little tag in its ear that would be valuable, but it was precious to me. And that, I guess that was the first time Daddy had enough money to buy anything much for me. And I don't know what he bought for Velda, maybe some clothes, baby clothes or something like that. She was too little to have much in the way of toys. So those are my Shakota experiences. And then after that year, Mother and Daddy moved back to the farm, back to Liberty Hill, and we had more experiences like that. Today, as I look back, I think about how pathetic our lives were. You know, I guess we would be on welfare now. Oh, I know we would, because there was no income much. And but we never really went hungry, and there were people who did go hungry, you know, at that time. And Mother saw to it that our clothes were clean. They were always pressed and ironed, starched too, and that we went to school. In fact, I got a perfect attendance in the first grade, and I rode a school bus, so I thought that was pretty good. And that was the card that I had to use later to get my birth certificate all straightened out.
What do you think is the most important thing that your parents taught you?
Oh, the most important thing, my goodness. My parents were good teachers. Neither one of them got to go through high school, but they valued an education. Mother went through the 9th grade, I think, and then she went to live with an older sister and took the 9th grade over just so she could have another year of schooling. All the communities in those days did not have high schools. Daddy did not get to go through high school. He was quite athletic. He could have been a star of some sort. He was very athletically inclined. He did go to Poto one time. The school from Cameron went to Poto on contests, and Daddy came home with a pocket full of medals. I remember playing with those medals when I was little, and I don't think we have any of them left. But he won races he hadn't even trained for. He trained for one of them, I think, and then he just kept entering the others, and he was so speedy he'd win them. But any case, Mother and Daddy taught me, I think I could say, the value of going to church. That was one thing that they stressed. I think I mentioned that Mother's daddy was a preacher, and some of my first memories outside, later than the ones I was telling about, where the little baby died, is going to Sunday school and getting those little cards with people's pictures on it, like Moses and people. And I remember my Sunday school teacher, and that was the church at Liberty Hill. And in the summertime, we had our class outside. We had a bench, and she'd take the class outside, and we'd have class there. But we had happy memories. We didn't have very much. Family would get together. We'd go to Grandma's house, and all the folks would gather there. Kids had to wait in those days until the adults ate. You know, it's just the opposite now. You feed the children so you can keep them quiet, and then you can eat. But I had cousins who lived in the neighborhood. We had close ties, and Mother and Daddy stressed the importance of going to school, and yet I cannot remember that they ever sat and lectured us and told us, you have to go to school, you have to get an education, you have to do this. Somehow or another, we just knew that was important, that it was something we should try to do. And so all 5 of us managed to graduate from college, which I considered a great accomplishment for poor farm people, and that's what they were at that time.